गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम् भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सहस्रपरमा देवी शतमूला शताङ्कुरा सर्वगुं हरतु मे पापं दूर्वादुःस्वप्ननाशनी काण्डात् प्ररोहन्ति परुषः परी एवानो दूर्वे प्रतनु सहस्रेण शतेन च या शतेन प्रतनोषि सहस्रेण विरोहसि तस्यास्ते देवीष्टके विधेम हविषा वयम् अश्वक्रान्ते रथक्रान्ते विष्णुक्रान्ते वसुन्धरा शिरसा धारयिष्यामि रक्षस्व मां पदे पदे ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Om Shri Saram, offering my most reverential pranams to our beloved Bhagwan. Respected Chancellor Sir, Registrar Sir, esteemed dignitaries, distinguished speakers, dear faculty members, my fellow students, and our audience joining online, a very warm and loving salam to one and all. It's my distinct honor and privilege to extend a warm welcome to each one of you to the CFO Conclave 2026, centered on the theme, Finance with Values, Shaping Responsible Leaders for Tomorrow. A conference where ideas are ignited, integrity is upheld, and innovation converges to shape us, the custodians of tomorrow's leadership. Before we dive into today's agenda, I deem it a great honor to express our sincere gratitude to our Honorable Chancellor Sir, Shri Chakravarti Garu, for graciously taking the time out to be with us and elevate this conclave with your presence, sir. Every interaction with you, sir, leaves us profoundly enriched, not in fleeting material terms, but in the enduring wealth of wisdom, clarity of thought, and values you so generously impart. Thank you, sir. A warm welcome to our Registrar, Sir, Dr. Shrikant Khanna, whose steadfast support and encouragement have been instrumental in the successful execution of any event that fosters student growth and holistic development. We also express our profound gratitude to our esteemed Dean, Professor N. Shivkumar Sir, whose unwavering commitment to education transcends the mere dissemination of knowledge and transforms it into a deeply engaging and participative experience. For inspiring us to not just become recipients of knowledge, but active seekers of understanding, we remain deeply grateful. We also extend our heartfelt gratitude to our respected Director Ma'am, Professor Rani PL, whose words always carry a rare depth that touch our lives in truly meaningful ways. Your conversations with us are not mere interactions, ma'am, but thoughtful reflections that stay with us, shaping how we think, grow, and navigate life. Thank you, ma'am. We also extend our heartfelt appreciation to our esteemed head of the department, Dr. G. Padmavati. Ma'am's visionary leadership and always rooting for us always guides our growth through every experience. This dedication is further mirrored by our conveners, Dr. C. Jayashree and Dr. Akanksha Agarwal, and our entire faculty at the Department of Management and Commerce, whose meticulous planning and tireless efforts behind the scenes have been truly inspiring. Now, we look forward to the most anticipated gains of our knowledge portfolio, and I feel profoundly honored to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our eminent speakers, who are truly royalty in the realm of finance, for graciously honoring us with your presence today. Their illustrious careers, penetrating insights, and unwavering commitment to excellence in finance mark them as true paragons of the profession. Even at the very cusp of the financial year, when balance sheets beckon and accounts clamor for attention, they have generously carved out time from their demanding schedules to share their wisdom with us. This indeed can be termed as a debt we cannot repay, but only remain grateful for. I exhort each one of us here to embrace this rare opportunity with both curiosity and diligence to engage, question, and absorb, so that we may not glean merely knowledge, but the discerning judgment and vision that will define us as the responsible leaders of tomorrow. In reflecting upon the essence of such learning, we are often guided by the wisdom of those who have shaped the very foundation of finance. Finance luminaries like Warren Buffett have long reminded us that while markets may reward brilliance, they ultimately endure only on the foundation of values. For numbers can be calculated, wealth can be accumulated, but values cannot be substituted. In the world of finance, values are the only currency that never depreciates, and without it, no number, however exponential, truly adds up. To capitalize this spirit and to commence this enlightening day of discussion and deep dives, I now request our esteemed Chancellor Sir, Shri Chakravarti Garu, Registrar Sir, Dr. Shrikant Khanna, our Dean, Professor N. Shivkumar, our Director, Professor Rani PL, and the chief guest of today's session, Ms. Sandhya Vasudevan, to light the ceremonial lamp, invoking divine blessings and marking the commencement of today's conclave. Thank you, esteemed guests and dignitaries. We also thank our Deputy Director for gracing this occasion and always sharing our wisdom and purpose. We also welcome all the other dignitaries, the Deputy Controller, Professor C.N. Shetragna Sir, the Director of Vrindavan Campus, and the Chief Financial Officer and the Controller of our Examination Center. Thank you all for being with us here today, sir. I now request our sisters Jayashree and Harika to present a token of our heartfelt welcome as a mark of respect and gratitude to our distinguished guests. To formally welcome this august gathering and usher us into the spirit of today's event, it is my privilege to introduce Professor Rani PL. Professor Rani PL, an alumna of our esteemed institution, began her academic journey as a physics graduate before embracing the field of literature for a postgraduate degree in the year 1995. As a professor of English and currently the director of the Women's Campus at Anantapur and Dean, Humanities and Social Sciences, Languages and Literature at Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Professor Rani is an academic with nearly 3 decades of teaching experience in the higher education sector. Ma'am's area of interest include media linguistics, literature and pop culture, post-colonial studies, eco-criticism and ELT. Ma'am is also the co-author of the book From the Colonial to the Carnival, The Indian Tale of an English Game, which explores the story of Indian cricket from a post-colonial perspective, apart from having numerous research papers to her credit. Under Ma'am's nurturing vision, the Institute's brass band has grown from its nascent beginnings into a vibrant ensemble, shaping both music and minds while cultivating discipline and inspiring artistic excellence among students. Beyond titles and positions, what truly defines Rani Ma'am for us is her unwavering faith in cultivating discipline and devotion that shape our character and purpose. It's this blend of scholarship, simplicity, and genuine affection that makes her presence reassuring and her leadership so deeply inspiring for all of us. It's with immense respect and deep admiration that I now invite Professor Rani PL, Director, Anantapur Campus, Dean, Humanities and Social Sciences and Languages and Literature, to deliver the welcome address.
My reverential pranams at the lotus feet of our divine founder chancellor, Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Honorable Chancellor Sir, respected Registrar, the Dean of Management and Commerce, Director of Brindavan Campus, Deputy Controller of Examination, all the guests of honor, our special guests of honor, finance officer, our placement and other colleagues from the institute, my own colleagues from the Anandpur campus, the head of the Management and Commerce Department, faculty members, and my very dear students. Before I start, actually Sujana stole away all my welcome address. She already welcomed everybody. And thank you for the kind, very kind words, and every kind introduction is a challenge because it's basically challenging you to live up to what is thought about you. So the bar is raised every time you girls are introducing me, and getting more challenging for me. Any case, thank you for the very, very kind words. My task, as per the schedule, is to offer a formal welcome. It behoves me to mention to all of you to what kind of a campus I have the pleasant duty to welcome all of you to. Women's right was just a thought globally until in 1975 the UN declared it the International Women's Year, and women empowerment became an officially taken up initiative globally. But Bhagwan Baba, who is God to many of us, and the founder chancellor of this institution, who is only an 8th standard pass in a village school in the remotest corner of India, envisaged a free education model integrated with values in 1968, even before any other global institution began spreading the terminology women empowerment. This campus is a symbol of the divine being's all-protective love for women, women's education, and women empowerment in the right definition. Now, did he just envision women's education? That was a time when Rayalaseema, as this part of India, South India is called, did not have many options for girl students to pursue higher education after their school. History tells us that Bhagwan Baba was invited to a college day in the town, girls' college in the town, where in his discourse he declared that he understands the difficulty of girls who have no place to go to study in these premises, in this locality, and he would establish a school, a college. And come 1968, July 22nd, Bhagwan, in rented premises in the town, opened the Sri Sathya Sai Arts and Science College for Women, which today stands as a proud, deemed to be university, and we being one of its women's campuses. But the Lord of the universe would not want to run the women's educational setup from rented premises, would he? By 1971, July 8th, we had this beautiful campus as a gift from him, inaugurated by the then President of India, His Excellency Sri V.V. Giri. Thereby, this campus is about 55 years old as of now. This is about the setting up of a women's educational setup, the first in his educational mission. But what is the kind of education that Bhagwan envisaged for us? Today, when we look at 21st century skills, we say higher education should give us critical thinking skills, communication skills, collaboration skills. But the one thing that he always insisted upon was character building as the most important outcome of education. Bhagwan began with the premise, the end of education is character. And for that, Bhagwan planned the integrated education system, an integrative methodology, a completely residential system with a beautiful schedule that shapes individuals into wholesome personalities. What you will see glimpses of today in our students is our humble efforts to nurture that vision of Bhagwan Baba. Our heartiest welcome to all of you to such a divine campus. Chancellor Sir, it is our greatest pleasure to host you today. Despite your busy schedule and all other preoccupations, it pleases us so much that you decided to take time off to be with us today. We are greatly encouraged and inspired by your presence. Sir Registrar, despite pressing commitments, I'm sure, at your office, it's so heartening that you also are here today to be part of this conclave and visit the campus. Just as all the finance officers here, the CFOs here, our finance officer also tells me there is a minimum of 120 files per day on his table to clear before 5 p.m. But we are very delighted that despite that work pressure, you have taken time to come, sir. To all our guests of honor, it's for us a great honor to have all of you here. And we so look forward to listen to each of you from your vast experience in your own areas of expertise. To the students and all my fraternity from IHL, especially the faculty members of DMC, Department of Management and Commerce, which also includes our Deputy Controller. All of you put together this event as an academic catalyst to all of you before you leave the portals after your 2-year stint at the MBA program. And I am hopeful that you will make the most of today's discussions and deliberations and make this event as fruitful as the efforts behind it has been humongous and delightfully cumbersome, if I may say. So with these words, my heartiest welcome to each one of you here for having graced us on this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your welcome address and for creating a tone of gratitude for the day. Your words always prompt reflection and resonate with us, ma'am. Thank you. To set the tone for this meaningful day, it's my privilege to invite our Dean of Management and Commerce, Professor N. Shivkumar, to deliver the inaugural address. An esteemed educator, a prolific researcher, and a distinguished alumnus of our institute, Professor Shivkumar holds the unique distinction of being the very first doctoral research scholar in the Department of Management and Commerce in the year 1989. His doctoral thesis on values-based management, historical roots in India and current practices makes Sir one of the most ideal voices in this room to anchor and enrich today's theme. With over 140 publications to his credit, his academic contributions are truly remarkable. On a personal note, we as students have had the privilege of attending Sir's finance classes, and what makes them truly memorable is how engaging your activities are, sir. Thank you. Sir's passion, guidance, and engaging approach to learning reminds us a lasting impact that a great teacher can have. With this, please join me in welcoming Professor N. Shivkumar to the stage.
Om Sri Sai Ram, offering our humble pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet, respected Chancellor of the Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, respected Registrar, Finance Officer, the Director of the Anantapur campus and the Brindavan campus, members of the administration, faculty members, dignitaries and guests of today, and my dear students, and also the multiple number of people who are watching this program live on YouTube. It is my privilege to deliver the inaugural address as a part of the CFO Conclave on finance with values. I would like to dwell upon three of the teachings of our beloved Chancellor Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba to understand how Baba Swami made us understand the role of finance and money not only in business but also in each and every one of our lives. The very first teaching which Swami would put in his very beautiful Telugu, but I would like to tell it in English. Swami would tell, using the word for money as duddu, Swami would tell, bladdu and duddu must always be in circulation. They should never stagnate at a place. In case blood stagnates at a place, it leads to a rash with a black blood getting collected there. Swami would also tell the same way duddu, finance or money must also continuously keep circulating. We hear of many cases where companies have free cash flows, do not know what to do with that money, keeps accumulating. Even the very recent case of ITC, so much of free cash flows, do not know what to do with that money. Indeed is a problem where unless companies, CFOs as well as executives have a very clear-cut financial plan as to how to circulate money, then only it will be useful for not only the company but also for the economy in general. So the first one was bladdu and duddu must always circulate. The very second one, Swami would always tell us the true value of finance and money through a very interesting and very unique analogy. Swami always would tell money can be compared to that of a footwear. A footwear is essential for everyone because it protects us wherever we go. Money and finance is indeed essential for every company. Yet, Swami would tell we should understand how this footwear should be for every person. A footwear should never be too tight, nor should it be too loose. If it is too tight, also it will be hurting. If it is too loose, also it will be very disturbing. Indeed, money in any person's life as well as in corporate, we have to see the very same thing. The ILFS scam and the important issue that happened a few years back before the COVID, I'm sure the students would have studied that in great detail, is one of the most interesting aspects of a liquidity crisis which created a systemic effect through domino effect in the entire economy. One company faced a liquidity crisis of too less cash, which led to a domino effect of multiple companies facing a very same issue. Too less cash is like having a too small sized footwear. Again, having too much cash with companies, especially in the new age of IT companies, having too much of free cash, not knowing what to do with that, and ultimately ending giving huge amounts of dividends back to their own owners and shareholders, is yet another example of a footwear being too large and not knowing what to do with, which is actually very disturbing. So the second important lesson Swami told for all of us with money is that it should be of correct size, and finance dealing with cash flows indeed is that it should be of the appropriate size of the related to the organization. The third lesson that Swami always told us in his again very beautiful words, Swami would tell us the role of money, and Swami told, money comes and goes, morality comes and grows. And this was again a very beautiful lesson for us to understand the true value of money, but more importantly, the value of values. Money by itself does not have any value. The value for money comes based on the person who uses that money. And that person who uses the money either as an investment or either for financing or for retention and distribution, being the classical functions of financial management, that person decides the value of money. Money by itself doesn't have value. And that is the importance of finance with values, because Swami would tell money is surely useful. Management is not money management. Swami would tell management is man management, because a good manager is defined by the word manager itself, the very first three letters of the word manager. A good manager is first of all a good man or a good human being. So therefore, this institution, the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, focuses on man management so that we will develop leaders, responsible leaders, who know the true value of money as well as the true value how money can gain value by its appropriate use. And Swami told us the way to use money ultimately is what we chant multiple times every day, because the ultimate goal of human life as well as finance, which involves money, is samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Money and finance must ultimately lead to the welfare of everyone. It is my great pleasure to congratulate the Department of Management and Commerce for organizing such a wonderful conclave on finance with values. I am sure all the participants, especially the students, will gain a lot out of this wonderful program today. I wish this program all the very best and take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this conclave. Thank you, Sai Ram.
Thank you, sir. Your words have truly set the tone for the CFO Conclave 2026 by focusing on Swami's teachings that money and blood shall always be in circulation, and the better cash flow management is the correct management. Also, money comes and grows where morality comes and grows. The best leaders don't just rise to the top. They build pathways for others to grow, lead, and create impact. This is much like what it is today. The seasoned leader sitting here to address the leaders in the making. at the CFO Conclave 2026, Finance with Values, Shaping Responsible Leaders for Tomorrow, it is my privilege to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker, Ms. Sandhya Vasudevan, a distinguished senior board leader and former managing director at Deutsche Bank and Thomson Reuters. Ms. Vasudevan brings over 37 years of global experience across organizations like AXA and the TVS Group, leading transformation, digital scale, and governance across global markets. Also, ma'am currently serves as an independent director on 6 boards, namely TTK Prestige, Himansika Seed, Greaves Electric Mobility, Electronica Finance, UC Inclusive Credit, and Ascorp Technologies, where she champions strategic clarity, robust governance, and purpose-driven growth. Ma'am, amidst your many leadership commitments, we are deeply grateful that you choose to be here with us today. Beyond the boardroom, Ms. Vasudevan plays a pivotal role as a startup and innovation catalyst, serving as a fintech chair at TIE Bengaluru, mentoring founders through IIM Bangalore, NSRCEL, and the Indian Angel Network, also contributing as trustee at Industry Foundation. Ma'am is also Distinguished Fellow and Professor at the Advanced Study Institute of Asia. Her contributions extend to the research, policy, and social impact through institutions like Sri Shankara Cancer Hospital, CSIR URDIP, Center for Scientific and Industrial Research, Unit for Research and Development for Information Products, IDRIM, Integrated Disaster Risk Management Committee, and MGSCC, an NGO for environmental work. Author of Hatching Butterflies, Ms. Vasudevan is a passionate advocate at the intersection of patient capital, deep tech, entrepreneurship, and social impact, building future-ready ecosystems. From corporate leadership to boards and startups, her journey reflects a powerful mission connecting ideas, institutions, and innovators to drive responsible and high-impact growth. Please join me in warmly welcoming Ms. Sandhya Vasudevan.
Om Shri Sai Ram. I'm genuinely grateful for whatever opportunity brought me here. A friend of mine was asked to speak here, and she said she can't make it, and she asked me whether I could come. And I think life always has a purpose on why you land up where you land up. Honestly, it does touch me very deeply. I'm honored to have met Shri Chakravarti, Registrar, Dean, and I think what you shared right now, as well as Director, I think it makes you think and makes you feel the students here are extremely fortunate to be part of this institution. You wake up in the morning with Suprabhatam. You learn yoga, which makes you rooted in the here and now. You have exercise. It seems like a daily activity. Oh my God, I have to wake up at 5 o'clock. But reality is people talk about wellness and being centered in the West, and they're trying to learn something that you're doing every day. So you come from an institution of values. So really, really honored to be here. My father was a teacher for almost 25 years, even though he was a doctor in the army. And one of the first classes he used to take was on ethics. How to be a good doctor is more about extending kindness, the human touch. It's not about how good a doctor you are, but do you connect with the other human being who's out there? The cancer hospital I'm associated with, Dr. Srinath, first thing he'd say is, do you have kindness when you're talking to a patient who's so scared when they come there? Many of you are going to become finance professionals, you'll be CEOs, you'll be startup ecosystem players, teachers, different roles. But what is the impact you leave on someone else? When I saw Sri Chakravarti, I've heard of him. I don't think I've ever met him, but the impact is so deep. He's built an institution which has nurtured so many of you. Are you going to be the ones who will leave that legacy as you go forward? So let me share a few stories. I'm going to cover my thing in 3 parts. First is, it doesn't matter if you're an expert in finance. I think he mentioned the man, the human being. 25 years ago, I had just joined as MD for Thomson Corporation, which later on became Thomson Reuters. A young woman came crying into my cabin. She must have been 1 or 2 years older than you, just passed out, first job. And I said, what's wrong? She said, my parents are trying to get me married off to the 60-year-old man, and there are goons outside. And we looked out, and there were goons. So it was very scary. So I said, do you have time? She said, maybe a week or 2, before which they will not let me out. She was actually very, very devoted to Sai Baba. She came from a very different background, the Shivaji Nagar in Bangalore. So in those days, you didn't have too many social institutions. I asked someone who was associated with Parthi and here to give a contact number, and I gave it to that child. She vanished. I don't know what happened to her, but I'd like to believe she was taken care of. That was not a job that I expected when I became an MD, to take care of a young person's life who's scared that the goons will take her away. So if you become a leader, don't expect most of your jobs to be about finance. It could be something as strange as this. The second story is more finance related or technology related. I had just set up a technology ERP, that is the enterprise software for a finance company. And then I realized I had to put in place security controls, access controls. And one of the ladies there was told, yeah, you can work on pre-production systems, but once it goes live, it has to go through change management. Today it's common sense. 25 years ago, it was not common sense. Lady was very angry. She had been a school pass out, but very bright. So I had kind of nurtured her and given her the opportunity, and she was very happy with that. But she was very angry that her right to make changes when people came and asked her was stopped. So she decided to mess up the database. 1 million customers, deposits of retired people going there. My first thing was, I said, she needs to go. Mrs. Indu Ramchandran was my boss at that time, and she said, no, look at what is the problem. You brought in a system without emotionally including that lady's needs in that thing. She has contributed, but you just brought in a rule without being inclusive of human beings. She's got a 1.5-year-old child. She's got a blind mother-in-law and a blind husband. Are you really going to throw her out? You've got to find a way to make her understand and bring her into the fold while cleaning up the data. And by the way, I didn't have anyone else to clean up the data. I had to go through 1 million records. This is in November. March, you have the audits coming in. That lady stayed with the company 25 years after that, or 30 years. She's still there. One of the things I learned is mercy, or the understanding of human beings, is very, very important. The impact of something like that is, if we didn't correct the data, people who were retired, who were getting monthly amounts from that, would not be able to run their house. And yet, do you throw this person out because they were just angry once? That's also not right. But having said that, having worked in multinationals, I would have thrown them out. So you need to know when to be tough, you need to know when to have mercy, and you need to know how to do it right. You don't always get it right. In 2014, the CSR laws came in. I was with Deutsche Bank, and the amount we had to spend for CSR was 54 crores per year. By the time I left 6-8 years later, it was 80 crores. Not a small number. If the government has said it's 2% tax, no questions, people would have paid. Oh, this is for CSR. Do we really need to pay that much? Can we just keep it? I spent quite a bit of time convincing the global team, no, it's not an optionality. You are going to pay the payment. The right thing to do is to invest and do things. I remember my boss saying, Sandhya, do you know what you've done? You've kind of literally put the cat among the pigeons. You fight for certain things that you believe in. It's the right thing to do, even if it means you may be impacted in your career. So, number of times in my career, I've usually had a resignation letter with me always. Very simple, resignation letter. If something is not right, I feel I need to walk out. It's not that you're being stupid. Value systems are important. I remember once I had to sack somebody. He's a very good person, but he had rattled the cage across different sectors. So the global investigation said, we can't find anything, but it's not the right way to behave. So I actually had a conversation with him. He's still a friend, by the way, 25 years later. And I said, listen, if you don't go, they will pursue you and sack you. And it's going to have a very negative impact for the rest of the team. It's better you move on. I'll be happy to support you, find another role. 2 days later, I was going to New York, and I had my resignation letter. I had also bought a ticket with my own money to come back. So when I met the global CFO, I said, listen, because a colleague of mine from Australia said, guilt by association. In the Indian context, you say, stay with good people because you will also rise up. Whereas here, if you're seen as being associated with somebody not okay, you're also seen as not okay. India has the reputation of corruption. They will think you're also not okay. So I went and had the conversation with my CFO, and I said, listen, they've sacked him, but if you do not trust me, I'm the new country manager, I can't stay. I'm happy to resign right now. Here it is. Happy to walk out. I stayed with them for another 9 years. Trust has to be built, and you need to know when to stand your ground. So basically, leadership is beyond what you learn in accounting, math, whatever thing it is. That's a hygiene factor. You need to have it, otherwise you can't do your job. But it is your character that makes the difference, and you're in one of the best institutions for something like that. I'm going to give you a set of facts. I love facts. I love numbers. Even though I didn't do accounting. I have an arts degree. I have a master's in arts, I have a master's in marketing, but I've done only technology and finance all my life. So, the estimated cash holdings, you were talking about free cash flows, is about 7 trillion. 7 trillion. And India is trying to get to 5 trillion as total amount of GDP. That's the number out there. If you look at India's digital economy, we are expected to get to 1.2 trillion by 2030. That'll be 20% of India's GDP. Yeah? Large number? All of us contribute to it. Every time you use your UPI, we're contributing in that way. The third number I'm going to talk about is in 1975, 90% of value in the balance sheet internationally came from factories and hard brick and mortar stuff. Today, that number is 70 trillion, which is non-tangible assets. And non-tangible assets means goodwill, intellectual property, brand, and you have a whole range of things. Software, whatever you want to have, they're not tangible. How is that created? It seems like funny money. Where is it coming from? And by the way, India doesn't account all of that correctly, because there was a discussion on the intellectual property conversation, and Reliance was saying, we create content, but we can't account it in our balance sheet. We need to make a change in our accounting system. So you need to make changes to policy. How do you do that? 70 trillion, by the way, that is the number today, globally. Not a small number. Your mind doesn't even compute. So if you're looking at these kind of things, you're living in a world where jobs that you're thinking about today will not be there tomorrow. You're not even thinking about, we don't know what kind of jobs will be there for you tomorrow. I did not know the jobs that I did. They were not on the horizon where I started my work. So please remember, by the time you leave the college, there will be jobs out there which don't exist today. Which means you need to understand how the world is operating. Geopolitics has changed. 10 years ago, you never thought of US and China being G2s. Today, that's there. It's a multipolar world. You need to understand if one thing happens here, something else gets affected. Last year, when Mr. Trump decided to start his journey with tariffs and the like, the company I'm on, Greaves Electric Mobility, we had 1.5 months of inventory for the Chinese magnet, which requires rare earth. The bigger companies had even more of a problem. How do you manage that? Geopolitics means your supply chains are impacted. Technology means today we're all talking about AI. I'm a major proponent of quantum sciences. I believe over the next 200, 300, 400 years, that's your frontier. India needs to go forward. Yes, AI will transform, but this is the next one. And the socio-economic side, India has 500 million people still below poverty. How do you transform it over the next 25 years? That's a burden that you need to carry. So if you're doing things, create immense wealth. Please create immense wealth so that some of that can be used to help those who don't have it. Not to just give them, but so that they become productive and can contribute. It is very, very important. And the fact that you come from this institution means you have that value. As CFOs, you need to be thinking about deep technologies, because that's where the allocations go. You need to be thinking about cybersecurity, survival of your company, of your industry, of the country. You need to think about digital. It doesn't matter. One of the companies I'm associated with is TTK Prestige. Cookers. But you need to think about cybersecurity there. You have millions of customers who buy that. They give their WhatsApp number. They give their details. Their lives could be impacted if it's not managed properly. And the intangible assets. So the role of the CFO is allocation of money. Again, Sir spoke about it. 30 to 40% of the best companies outperforming them keep churning that money. The allocation keeps moving from one to next to next. I was lucky to be part of Thomson Reuters, which always did that. Every year, are you making enough money with this investment? If no, sell it, reuse the money for something else. Are you number 1, 2, 3 in that sector? If not, do you want to be there, or do you still have 3 years by which you can turn around? You need to be thinking about the value creation, because if you invest today, is it before it is too late, or are you investing at the right time? That's an instinct you have to develop. And are you investing it in the right fashion? So allocation is, and the top 10% make 80% of the money. So assume, understand that. The second bit is, do you have competitive intelligence? Be interested in the world around. How do they connect with each other? It's very important to connect the dots. I love connecting the dots, and that's my advantage, because I don't come from any field. I keep listening, and I say, that's interesting. Get curious, get interested, but convert it into your own understanding. Understand the risks, the the world is quite complex. You will have all kinds of risks. And if you're in the financial field, liquidity risk, credit risk, market risk, three major ones. And you have non-financial risks. But how do you manage it so that it is not impacting? Invest today for what you want to build tomorrow. As part of my think tank activity, I had done a white paper for the government. It said, soft power. We all have used McKinsey's and the Big Fours. But what are the companies from India that are going to be the Big Fours of tomorrow? We have to build them today, not tomorrow, if we want to be seen as leaders. And we have some very unique properties in the country. And I'm using very public property. For example, the Kumbh Mela. I don't think a McKinsey can build it. It's our people who have the mindset for changing, size, scale. Look at this institution. The example that Professor gave on how the institutions have been built. What is that spark that you're going to take forward? So the world is complex. The CFO of today is not the CFO of tomorrow. The jobs that you're looking at today is already obsolete. So please think about it differently. Be alive to learning. Therefore, what are some of the things you can do to help yourself? Keep looking at what do you want to do. Be very clear about it for yourself. Spiritually, as an individual, as a family, as your community. Understand your values. How does your profession fit into that lens? Because you're not an isolated human being. Please understand that's a very important fundamental element of how you drive life. I was sharing it with one of your professors. When I was building Thomson Corporation, I looked for 3 sets of people. One from this institution, the Satya Sai institutions, some from Mangalore, because they have a lot of financial capability, and I looked at some of the convent colleges, because we were working with the international team and I needed people with very good communication skills. The reason I wanted children from this institution is the value systems that are very important for a company. And the first cohorts of people are the ones who will set the culture for that company. And for me, that was very important. I could not be going and telling you should do this, you should do that. Individuals need to do it on their own. You are the culture carriers for the companies you will work for the country, and maybe humanity. So don't underestimate the role you have. You are all the future leaders, and you have the potential to transform the world. You can do it with values, or you can just do it. There are lots of people who are doing it and not sure where it's going. But when you have a spiritual mooring, you have values, you have discipline, you can change the world in ways that we don't even know. So I wish you all the very best. And again, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, ma'am. Your perspective on purpose-driven leadership and responsible finance have given us a lot to reflect on. Now, I request Honorable Chancellor Sri Chakravarti Garu to give a token of gratitude on our behalf to Ms. Sandhya Vasudevan. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. It was truly an honor to have you with us today. Now, moving on, it's my pleasure to introduce for the next speaker of the day, a result-oriented finance professional with over 20 years of distinguished experience across diverse industries. Ms. Ananda Shalini has held leadership positions at Butterfly Gandhimati Appliances, Crompton Greaves Consumer Electricals, PepsiCo, ACC Limited, and Apollo Hospitals. A chartered accountant and an IFRS diploma holder from ACCA, Ms. Shalini combines strong technical foundations with a strategic mindset, making her one of the most incredible and inspiring voices in Indian corporate finance today. Her leadership achievements include reducing DSO from 45 to under 25 days, releasing over 50 INR crores into working capital, and winning the Pride and Glory Award for personal leadership. Today, as the Chief Financial Officer of Kevin Care, she continues to partner with the board and senior leadership to champion business and operational excellence, driving strategic decision making with the balanced thinking that has come to define her leadership style. Given your dynamic role as CFO, ma'am, we are especially grateful that you have taken the time to be here with us today. Let us extend a warm welcome to Ms. Ananda Shalini.
This is yours. Beyond this one only. Slightly not this one. I'm going to leave this one. I would have sent to Jayashree ma'am. This one. This one. This one. Jayashree ma'am. Same thing. You told you received it. Only one I have received.
While the presentation gets ready, I would like to thank for this opportunity. It gives me immense pleasure and great gratitude to be standing here after 30 years, in the sense, when I was pursuing my chartered accountancy course after my 12th, I had visited Prashanti Nilayam under the blessings of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. I had his blessings to be anchoring for a music program in closer encounter with him, seeking his blessings. And I never imagined after 30 years, exactly sometime during this time, I would be standing here again as a CFO and talking to all of you in this. It's really touching for me, and really thank you. As Ms. Sandhya also mentioned, it should be his blessings that I am here again in front of all of you. So, in the morning after I arrived, I went to the prayer meeting here on the campus. And as I sat in that space, in that stillness, in that collective turning of what is good and true, I found myself thinking, this is precisely the quality the world outside needs the most and receives the least, I would say. That attention, that uprightness, that sense of something larger than oneself, guiding every action. And my deepest wish for every one of you, as you walk out of these gates into your careers, is that what you carried into that prayer hall this morning travels with you into every boardroom, into every business that you might take forward, entrepreneurship, a startup, or any boardroom, and every balance sheet that you might sign in future. Every decision you face under pressure when no one is watching. You need to carry this virtue and values as you move forward. And my prayers is that those virtues not stay within these walls. May they walk out with you, which is why I want to begin not with a slide or a statistic, but with a slogan that has anchored dharmic life in this civilization for millennia. Dharmo rakshati rakshita. You might have heard already from Mahabharata. He who protects dharma, dharma protects him. 4 words, 14 syllables, and in them, the entire philosophy of ethical leadership. Not do the right thing and you will be rewarded. That would be transactional, as you all might know. This is something far deeper. It says, when you uphold what is right, when you make it your foundation, not your strategy, a protective force gathers around you, and that no balance sheet can quantify and no adversary can easily breach. In finance, we call it reputation, as Ms. Sandhya also mentioned, trust and credibility. We call it institutional credibility. The ancients simply called it dharma. And this morning, I want to explore along with you what it means to carry dharma into the most pressure-tested arena of a professional life, especially in the world of finance, in a century that will test your character in ways no classroom fully prepares you for, right? So, because what kind of world are you going to get into? In 1987, a US Army strategist coined a phrase to describe the post-Cold War world. He called it VUCA. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, you all know. At that time, it described geopolitics. Today, it describes your everyday morning. Volatile, just I'm coming from endless meetings, war rooms, talking about how I save my cost, how I safeguard my gross margins, dropping significantly by 8 to 10% because of the ongoing war in a place which is 6,000 kilometers away from where I operate my business. Conflict or complexity. One conflict in the Red Sea rewrites the cost structure of every FMCG company, especially, or any company for that matter in India overnight. Ambiguity, regulations that shift between the time you file and the time you are assessed. So this is going to be this is your operating environment. And Dharmo Rakshati Rakshita tells you exactly how to stand it. Now, how do you do it? Not by being the smartest person in the room, but being the most grounded one. And for that, we do not need a Harvard case study or any other established. Of course, they do make a difference when it comes to academics. But I need to go back to 3,000 years ago to a story most of us have heard since childhood, but perhaps never truly applied to our professional lives. The story of the Samudra Manthan, the churning of the ocean, you all might have heard. But before that, So before that, this morning we'll go across 6 movements which we are going to explore. 3 forces, the topic of the speech given to me: risk, responsibility, and resilience, through an ancient Indian story, through real corporate failures and triumphs, and through the teachings of Bhagwan himself. And we will close with 3 things I hope you carry from this room for the rest of your lives. So let's begin. 3,000 years ago, the Devas and the Asuras, the gods and the demons, came together to churn the cosmic ocean. Their goal was Amrit, the nectar of immortality, prosperity, abundance. They used Mount Mandara as their churning rod, Vasuki, the great serpent, as a rope, and they churned and churned and churned. But before any Amrita came, something emerged from the depths of the ocean that nobody had planned for. What was that? Halahalam. The poison, so lethal that if it spread, it would destroy all of creation. Right? Nobody asked Shiva. There was no crisis committee, no escalation matrix, or no protocol document or workflow or nothing. The gods and demons simply stood there in helpless terror, and Shiva stepped forward. Without being asked, without any kind of negotiating terms, without asking who would take credit afterwards, he held the halahalam in his throat. He did not swallow it. That would have destroyed him, of course. He did not spit it out. That would have destroyed everyone else. He held it in that precise, disciplined, controlled middle space. And his throat turned blue. He is called Nilakantha, as we all know, the blue-throated one, not because of any victory, but because of the mark that responsibility left on him. And here is what the story maps to, in my view, for every finance professional and also the students who are to be the professionals go forward. The Devas churned without knowing what would emerge. That is risk. Uncertainty is the starting condition, not a failure of planning, of course. Shiva stepped forward without being asked. That is responsibility. The willingness to hold what others cannot, not because you must, but because you can. They did not stop at the poison. They turned to the churning until Lakshmi arose, until Dhanvantri came, until Amrit finally surfaced. And what is that? That is resilience, right? Every career will have its halahalam. The question is, do you have the character to hold it, right? Risk. Let's go to the first point, risk. Risk never knocks at your doors. It slowly whispers somewhere around you, right? The mind that is restless cannot perceive truth. Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba had mentioned. Let me give you a precise definition. Risk is not danger. Risk is the gap between what we expect to happen and what actually happens. And that gap almost never arrives loudly, right? It always whispers in a footnote, in an assumption that nobody questioned, in a number that looks slightly off but not enough to flag. The mind that is restless, that is busy, that is looking for confirmation rather than truth, that mind misses that small whisper entirely. Right? One such example, in 2008, Lehman Brothers, you might have studied in your case laws. The culture rewarded those who ignored the warning signs and sidelined those who raised them. Senior risk managers who flagged subprime exposure were not fired, they were quietly excluded from the decision-making process itself. Then, in one weekend, $600 billion of market value simply eroded. Not because the risk was unforeseeable, because the culture made it professionally costly to see that. In 2005 again, Raghuram Rajan, our ex-governor of RBI, stood at Jackson Hole in front of the most powerful, power-packed central bankers on earth and said the financial system was building fragility. At that time, he was laughed at. 3 years later, he was celebrated, or he was known as the man who had seen it coming. So that makes the difference. You have the opportunity to say the risk that you are seeing in a balance sheet, in a P&L, or any financial, or in any decision-making process. But what you choose to do, are you going to remain silent, or you are going to talk about it? That makes the difference. Seeing risk clearly and saying so is not caution, but it is courage, which all of us must always keep in our mind and keep growing in our mindset wherever we go, whatever be the situation. Courage matters. 2022 onwards, geopolitics has always had a page on our P&L. When Russia moved into Ukraine, wheat and sunflower oil spiked 40 to 60% in weeks. Red Sea conflict added weeks and significant cost to shipping between Asia and Europe. At a typical Indian FMCG company that I go through every day and night, palm oil, polymers, bulk film, petresin, all of these are routed through Hormuz Strait, which is now strictly closed or very thinly available. That is causing a great conflict in my financial statement as of today. So this is not macroeconomics you read about on a Sunday. This is your everyday morning cost sheet. So the restless mind chases headlines. The still mind, the mind you have been trained to cultivate here, sees the pattern before it becomes a crisis. So nurture it every day and night. You have to read the footnotes. You have to ask the question that nobody asks when wanted. That quality of attention is your most powerful financial tool. You study various scenarios, model making, Excels, AI technology, all of you read that or understand that in your classroom sessions, but these are certain things which comes with virtues and values, and you have that advantage which many other institutions don't have in today's date. Greed. Ceiling on desires. Here again I would want to quote Bhagavan, Sri Satya Sai Baba, when desire outruns judgment, destruction follows, right? And in finance, the mechanism is almost always the same. Over-leveraging, chasing growth at the cost of sustainability, or the belief that this time the rules of physics do not apply. Few examples. Harshad Mehta in 92, all of you must have studied again, 5,000 crores of rupees of securities fraud. He exploited the banking loopholes with relentless, unchecked ambition. He was not unintelligent, he was undisciplined. There is a difference, right? Kingfisher Airlines again in 2005 to 2012, a premium airline built on borrowed capital with no sustainable unit economics. Glamour, it was pure glamour which was real at that point in time, but the balance sheet was a fiction. It collapsed with 9,000 crore rupees in debt, leaving thousands of employees unpaid and an industry which was scarred. ILFS 2018 again, 91,000 crore rupees of default. Years of over-leveraged growth hidden in a web of 348 subsidiary entities, each borrowing between each other. The auditors signed, the boards approved. Nobody stepped back to ask one honest question, whether this is real. In each case, the warning signs did exist, as in the previous slide also we saw. The warning signs always exist. In each case, the culture, internal and external, chose not to see them. Bhagwan's teaching on a ceiling on desires is not asceticism. In a financial context, it is wisdom. Ambition calibrated to capacity is what we need today. Growth grounded in genuine value creation. So we all talk about CFOs are responsible for value creation, and at what cost is something which we need to ask ourselves. The moment desire detaches from wisdom, you are not building, you are counting down. The days of your organization and days of our career are being counted down. So desire without wisdom is not ambition, but it is a countdown, is what I would say. Next comes I would like to talk about responsibility. We spoke about risk, then comes responsibility. The harder right over the easier wrong. It's a human tendency. We always want to go for easier things because they are easy to do or talk or whatever. It's always harder to do the right thing, right? Love all, serve all again. I want to reframe a word for you. That word is responsibility. We tend to hear it as a burden, as a constraint, as something placed on us from outside, which is external. I would ask you to hear it today as something entirely different. Responsibility is the privilege of being trusted with something that matters. Think about what it means to hold a finance role in an organization. For example, vendors extend credit because they believe you will pay. Banks lend because they believe your numbers. Investors allocate their savings because they believe your disclosures and your promises that you would deliver. Employees come to work each morning because they believe their salary will arrive at every month end. Every single one of those acts is based on trust. And your job every day as a finance professional is to be worthy of it. One such example of Johnson & Johnson, for example, in 1982, 7 people died after consuming Tylenol capsules tampered with cyanide. Not J&J's fault. No law compelled a recall. The legal and financial exposure of pulling 31 million bottles was enormous. CEO James Buick did it in 72 hours because the company's credo, its values document was unambiguous. The customer comes first, right? Always. Not the quarterly number, not the stock price. The person who picks up that bottle, the cost was $100 million. The stock fell 12% in a week. Within a year, Tylenol had reclaimed its market leadership again with the changes that were brought in after the recall and the courage with which the responsibility was taken by the company. Trust once honored compounds, right? In a boardroom, seva looks different than it does in a service camp. You are not serving the poor directly, but the principle is identical. You are a steward. A finance professional is a steward. The institution is your instrument of service, and through it you serve every life it touches, be it employees, suppliers, customers, communities around that. We spoke of CSRs. And when you next face a moment where the easier path and the right path diverge, and you will remember that you are not simply a finance professional making a call, you are holding something on behalf of people who trusted you with that position. So hold it as Shiva held the halahalam with discipline, with steadiness, and with grace. Now, let me, I will not take much of time, but I would like to touch upon certain other things on resilience. Bend, don't break. This, I believe, was Swami's framework. Resilience is not toughness. I want to be precise about this because the distinction matters enormously in practice. Being tough is called or being rigid, and rigidity always breaks. You all know a metal rod under stress holds, and then snaps without warning, right? Resilience is elasticity. Think of bamboo in a typhoon, right? It bends to the ground, and when the storm passes, it springs back again. The root holds, the form is restored. So Bhagavan gave us a framework I have found more practically useful than any crisis management manual ever written. There are 3 words he said, I believe: do not worry, do not hurry, and do not be sorry. So do not hurry, what it is? Worry is do not worry. Worry is the mind spending energy on what it cannot control. Do not hurry. The worst decisions in corporate crisis history were made in the first 48 hours when panic is blinding our future sight. Panic is the enemy of judgment. So in April 20, the companies that served their stakeholders best were not the ones that moved fastest when the COVID happened. They were the ones that paused, assessed honestly, and then moved with clarity. Do not be sorry. Regret about the past consumes the clarity you need for the future. Learn the lessons, right? Honor those affected, and then let it go. The Devas did not stop at the hala and hold a post-mortem, right? They returned to the churning, and so must we. HUL, as I just mentioned, the factories were shut. So was the case with so many other companies during 1920 COVID times. Logistics were frozen, retails closed overnight. Every 21 forecast made irrelevant in a weekend. Of course, today again we are in similar kind of a situation where I'm not projecting for an entire financial year, but I am just planning for the next 1 quarter. Even that is unclear as of today. So what did they do? What did HUL do or any other company do? They did not search for the old playbook because they wrote a new one in real time, scaling a soap and a sanitizer production 50 times over, building digital kirana ordering in weeks, moving from quarterly to fortnightly forecasting. And what was the result? Hand wash business grew 3 times. So this happened with other organizations as well. So as a CFO, I just wanted to emphasize 3 things that save you in a storm. And it would be a good thing to write down because they are not frameworks or not models, principles that work in the real world, drawn from hard experience. Just like Professor Shivakumar mentioned, money matters, right? Cash is the oxygen. Profitability, yes, but the resilience of an organization is known by the way the company manages its cash, right? Profitable companies can die without cash. We have seen it. A company showing excellent EBITDA with receivables stretched 60 days beyond term, suppliers demanding early payment, and a bank drawing down a working capital line, that company can be in genuine existential danger while the P&L looks fine. So I would say Professor Shivakumar very beautifully laid down how cash matters in an organization. Always know your cash runway. Second, relationships. Ms. Sandhya also, she mentioned very nicely about the relationships. They are harder to build than any financial models in today's date. In my terms, for example, in an organization, when you go, suppliers are people whom you meet day in, day out. Suppliers who gave us an extra 30 days of credit during a COVID season did not do so because there was a contract that existed. They did it because we had paid him on time for 8 years before the crisis, and resilience in extreme situation is drawn from trust built during the ordinary times. So build your vendor relationship, build your relationship with every stakeholder that you come across in an organization. Third, your team's morale is a financial variable. As my earlier speaker also mentioned, my team matters the most for me as a CFO, right? A team that trusts its leader brings bad news early. I may not ask my team member if things were going fine. Anything and everything comes to me basis their daily routine, and decisions are taken as per those early signals or early warnings. I give them the freedom to approach the supervisors or me to inform of any irregularity, even if it is not an irregularity in reality, but if in their minds they feel it's something wrong to be happening in a certain situation, they are free to approach and signal me on that subject. And one more specific to this decade, geopolitical risk, as we spoke, is something which always matters. We have all our risk registers, we have our business resilience plans, continuity plans. All of them work if all of us are serious in what we write on those risk registers. They shouldn't become a formality to be presented in a board meeting. So I would like to leave you with a vision of what this role of a CFO at its finest actually is. A CFO is a guardian of the past, the present, and the future, right? So just a Wirecard in 2020 is celebrated German fintech company, a DAX-listed company. It's a 1.9 billion euros of cash in the balance sheet, cash that simply did not exist, audited, approved, and also celebrated. The CFO was at the center. Now the company is gone. How come? The trust on the company is gone. Your integrity is not separable from your competence. In this profession, they are not two things. They are one thing. So you are the guardians of the past numbers that have happened. You are the guardians of the current, what is happening, the decisions that you take today. And you are the guardians of future because your today's decisions impact tomorrow's results. So we have to be, let us not be just in the past, but live in the moment, as we all say, and also think about the future, because finance professionals always need to be thinking on all three. We learn from the past, we live the moment, and we grow in the future. Few takeaways. So as I mentioned, I began this morning in the prayer hall along with all of you in your campus, and I return to it now again as I close. What struck me sitting here in that silence is that collective attention was that the virtues being invoked were not passive, they were active. Purity, truth, peace, love, non-violence, these are not qualities for retreat. They are qualities for engagement. Because after 25 years of my professional career, I started small. I might have started as an executive in a small company. Today, if I'm here as a CFO, it is, yes, I added my abilities, capabilities as I came along this journey. But what mattered was how I reacted to situations, how I created relationships with both internal and external stakeholders when it comes to work, and how I demonstrated ethical value in the decisions that I would have taken or in the communications that I might have had. So these qualities require grace, elegance. As a woman, we already possess those qualities. We just need to apply in work. It's not a personal thing, but at work also these things work a lot. The way you communicate things, it's always a give and take, right? How you communicate with your team members, how you communicate with your peers matters. And that if done with elegance and grace, all your decisions are taken with positivity. So Samudra Manthan did not end with the hala hala, as we mentioned. It ended with abundance, with Lakshmi, with Dhanvantri, and the gift of Lakshmi, healing with Amrit. But only for those who did not stop at the poison. Your career will have its hala hala. I promise you that. There will be a moment, perhaps several, where the crisis arrives without warning. It's always ambiguous, it's always uncertain. Where the easier wrong beckons, you will always be tempted to do or take decisions in a wrong direction. But that is where holding the right position costs something real. In that moment, I ask you you should remember what Shiva did. He did not run, he did not panic. He stepped forward, held it with discipline, bore the mark of it, and in doing so, saved everything around him. So the end of education is character, as we always emphasize Bhagavan's teachings. So here are the 3 things I ask you to carry from this room. See clearly. The most important financial skill you will develop is not Excel, it's not in DCF or not in financial modeling. It is honest perception. Today, AI, if you give the data points, it will give you all the information that you desire in few minutes. But the willingness to see what is actually there and the courage to say so, even when the room does not want to hear it, that is not done by AI. It is done by a CFO, it is done by a financial professional, and it is you who are going to do that. So, well, when in doubt, ask, am I doing this because it is right or because it is convenient? Ask yourself. You are a steward of trust and credibility. We saw in various examples in the earlier slides. The seva that Bhagavan teaches does not stop at the campus gate, right? It lives in every number you sign in your name outside. Keep going. The nectar is beneath the surface always. The devas did not stop. Again and again, I keep on saying, don't stop, or don't panic because something happened. Learn from those lessons and keep going. You are graduating from an institution built on the conviction that values and excellence are not competing priorities. They are the same priority, right? Carry that conviction into every organization you serve, every team you lead, and every crisis you navigate. The prayer hall this morning, it comes back to me again and again, because I keep on asking whether those virtues to protect and nourish us together is going to continue in the future years. But here is a set of students whom I believe will take forward that aspect into their futures without any kind of doubt in my mind. So in any hall you get into, please walk in with that confidence, with that courage, with the values that you have learned here, and build it in the abilities that you have been taught, capabilities, academic capabilities you have been taught here, and you will go places for sure. So go be good, go be great, and when the hala hala surfaces, hold it with grace. Saira. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am, for highlighting the interconnectedness of risk, responsibility, and resilience by bringing together mythology with relevant case studies in which risk may manifest. Also, emphasizing the role of CFO as a guardian of numbers in the past, present, and future. Also, to have an attitude of learning always, that learn, unlearn, and relearn. Now, I request our registrar, Dr. Srikant Khanna, to give a token of gratitude to Ms. Ananda Shalini. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. It was an absolute pleasure having you with us today. Now, I request all our esteemed guests, faculty, and my dear sisters to kindly join for a quick photo session at the entrance of the building, which will be followed by second MBA, then first MBA, and third BCom. Once the photo session is completed, we can all break for lunch, and I request everyone to assemble back by 1:30 p.m. in MMLC. Thank you, Sairam.